Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today, I want to talk about the scourge of Star Wars Destiny, Poe Maz. That's right. Not surprisingly, Poe Maz won all kinds of events this weekend. Some people have said, hey, it didn't win Europeans. You're right. It only got 3 of the top 8, just under 50%. And then we all know how Star Wars Destiny can work. It didn't actually win. That's okay. I think we can all agree this deck is the best deck in the meta right now. And the question then becomes, will it continue to be the best? Or is this more like Jango Veer's last set where everyone went, oh no, the sky is falling, Jango Veer's is awesome, and people went, get good, and figured out how to beat it. I know last set I was not worried about Jango Veer's. It had obvious problems. So let's talk about Poe Maz and what makes it so awesome. And here's, in my opinion, what makes this deck so amazing. It does not care about money. If it gets money, awesome. It could do some sick things. If you do stuff like salvage stand and go all in on depriving it of money, it just rolls specials, throws stuff out of its hand for free, and whoops you. Money is not an issue with the deck. It does not care about drawing and playing upgrades. So stuff like disarms and Imperial Inspection that might hurt other decks, or having to draw into your upgrades. None of these are an issue because Poe Maz goes upgrades? Psh, I don't need that. Fast hands it wants to have, but it can function just fine without it. It's just once it gets fast hands, we move into level ridiculous. And the last thing is, and this is the craziest part of all, it doesn't care about rolls. You're like, okay, I will roll Poe. Oh, a blank and a resource. Darn. That stinks. I'm assuming you're going to remove one of those dice. And your opponent's like, oh man, this is the turn where I missed. By the way, you can never miss against Poe. That's the other problem. They miss. They don't get the removal. And you're like, oh wow, you didn't get your removal. Okay. I'll roll Maz. Out of all those dice I rolled with her, one's a focus. I'll make one of Poe's a special. Okay. There's $3 characters. Now I'll claim and do 4 to one of the other ones. This is where, to me, the biggest problem with this deck comes into play, is that it is ultra consistent without having to roll, draw, play anything, or get resources. You can have all of those go horribly against you and still dominate. While on the one side, I love that. Like, this is what I've been looking for forever, and I love a deck like this to exist. The problem is, no other deck can do that. No other deck can have that confluence of things go wrong and be totally fine. And then on the other side, the way normally this stuff balances out is that if you get mega consistency, you give up explosiveness, you give up power. Whereas with Poe, you get them both. You get mega consistent and serious power. And so this to me is where the problems with Poe Maz lies. Now, a really great example of this is to look at, say, the comparison of this and the deck that won Europeans this weekend, a really cool Unkar FN Stormtrooper deck. Now, I love that deck. I've played that deck a lot. I found in my testing that, yes, it can beat Poe Maz. Of course it can. If you draw the right upgrades, if Unkar pulls the money that you need, then you can do really cool stuff where you can play lots of upgrades, overwrite them. If FN rolls well with the upgrades he puts on, he really gets 2 bites at the apple. You can kill Poe quick. You can win that game. But if you've noticed, there were a ton of ifs in there. And when Poe plays, he gets rid of the ifs. He just goes, I don't care what happens. I'm the greatest pilot in the galaxy. I do whatever I want. Whereas FN Unkar Trooper goes, okay, this is Destiny. I understand how this game works. Things have to go right for me, and when they go wrong for me, I'm probably going to lose, or it's going to be a really tough game. And the really big problem I have with Poe Maz specifically is that another deck, when stuff goes wrong, the other deck's not going to go perfectly either. And so it's like this match of who can sort of juggle the bad things that happen to them best. Yes, if one deck gets everything to go perfectly, it's probably going to win. But normally, it's this back and forth battle of like, I rolled bad, but you drew bad, and then we both rolled great. Okay, how do we balance all this? With Poe, it really feels like if your deck falters for a moment, Poe is the master of just stepping on your throat and ending this thing. And he can do it very quickly. The biggest thing I always hear against Poe Maz is, Okay, here's how you beat Po Maz. It's real easy. You just play like 12 removal, you take one of his dice every time, and you win. That is a great strategy, actually, and you should be doing that anyway. It works really well against Palpatine. The problem is, it doesn't always work that great against Poe. First of all, if they get fast hands, they're going to be doing, if you have a 3-character deck, they can do 9 damage without you being able to remove the die. They have a fast hand, so they roll to special, they do a thermal detonator, boom, 9 damage. Yes, you remove the other die, but they've done 9 damage off of 1 card and 1 die. That's hard to deal with. But then the other thing is, even when you pack that much removal, if you miss, that could be game. Like, that could just be game right there if they have the cards. And so Poe really takes advantage of any missteps. Okay, so let's talk about how do we handle this guy then, right? What are some of the issues? I'd say the biggest issue is that normal control options don't handle him well, right? Like a lot of decks, like say the deck that won Europeans, it runs that cool suite of Imperial Inspection and Salvage Stand, which are awesome. And you know what? Poe kind of laughs at them. And yes, it does hinder Poe a little tiny bit. If you can get out, let's say you get out Imperial Inspection, you bounce that fast hands. That's another action. And that can be useful against Poe to slow them down by an action. They really want to move fast. If you get out the Salvage Stand, it can be useful. Now maybe you can go for Poe, and they can't load up Maz like they normally would. Because normally what happens is, you go for Poe, and your opponent just goes, oh, you're going for Poe. Okay, cool. I'm going to put a DL-44 on Maz, followed by a rocket launcher on Maz, and she's going to wreck your face. And that's utterly terrifying, because it takes a little while to get Poe down with that massive health, with field medics, with dug-ins, with defensive positions, because they're always claiming the battlefield. So, basically the bottom line is traditional control options don't work great. I guess I shouldn't say traditional, these are new cards, but normal control actions. So what does handle Poe? Some things that handle him really well, if he doesn't have fast hands, are cards that can remove multiple dice at once. So Poe decks really want to roll Poe before Maz so they can do all their cool stuff. So if you can somehow get ahead of them, whew, having said that just makes my head hurt. If you can, negotiate can be awesome, right? You roll out your dude, they roll out Poe, bam, negotiate, his dice are gone. That can be sick. If you ever see a Poe Maz player roll Maz first, beware of negotiate. Some Poe Maz players are playing negotiate now, and it can be brutal. Defensive position works really well for the same way. The problem with defensive position is it's so rough against Poe, because you're like, okay, I need you to roll your 2 and 3. That's only 2 of the sides. It doesn't hit the special. It doesn't hit the other sides, which Maz flips into the specials. Defensive position is a little dicey. Overconfidence works pretty well as well if they don't have fast hands because they're rolling both out. Other cards that slow them down really well. Electroshock is good. Isolation is good. Flank is good. But again, you have to hit them. And it doesn't matter what he rolls. You better take that die. But even still, he's doing a lot of damage before you do it. Okay. So, what might beat Poe Maz then? The big one is claiming the battlefield. I think people forget how awesome Poe Maz is when they have the battlefield. When it has the battlefield, it opens up so many other options. They don't have to be afraid of things like defensive position, negotiate, overconfidence, because they're not going to have 2 dice on the board. As long as they have fast hands, or I guess overconfidence would still work, but negotiate won't work. It gives them, or if you claim the battlefield, it takes away most of their removal with defensive position. So this way, even if they're punching you hard, at least you get to punch back really hard. It takes away their dug in. Dug in is so good in Poe Maz. Oh my goodness. I saw someone publish a list yesterday with 1 dug in, and I almost fell out of my chair. How do you play 1 dug in? Dug in is what keeps Poe alive. It's amazing. So basically, getting that throne room or getting the battlefield before they can be amazing. The other thing is, don't give them the throne room if you can help it. I've gone back and forth on this. There was a period where I said, give them the throne room and take the 2 shields and be fine with that. But if you can give them, I mean, if you can make it so there is no throne room and they don't get fast hands early, you can actually kill Maz first. And if you kill Maz first, then you might actually be able to take all their dice. This is a really hard, tricky element of playing against Po Maz. I played against somebody at the store championship I won this weekend with this deck, and the person was playing an Obi-Wan Rey deck. We had my battlefield. I had fast hands on Po. He did 9 damage turn 1, and boom, killed Maz. I was freaking out. I was like, oh god, he's going to get 9 on Po. I might lose this one. And instead he uses his one massive turn on Maz and kills her and looks very happy about it. And I'm thinking, what was he thinking? I have the battlefield. I have fast hands. I am going to be churning out so much damage, and I did turn 1, and then I did turn 2, and I won without too much trouble. Po didn't get very low. And after the game I asked him, I don't understand. Why did you do that? I'm very curious. And he said, well, it worked last time. And so we had this whole conversation. I said, well, whose battlefield did you have? And he said, well, we had mine. Did Po have fast hands? No, he did not. See, that's a totally different scenario. So to beat Po Maz, you really have to think carefully about this. Like, what is going on in this game? Should I target Maz? Should I target Po? If you can target Maz, you should do it. If they have to both find a new orders and use 2 resources to use that new orders, that slows them down a little bit. That means maybe no dug in that turn, maybe no defensive position that turn. Maybe they can't resolve Po's 3 for 1 die that turn. That can be really useful, even just slowing them down. So don't let them have the throne room if you can. And if you get that perfect scenario, you should probably kill Maz first. But normally, I think you just got to go for Po and knock him out. What I said, of course, already holds true. In order to beat him, you got to remove his dice no matter what he rolls. No matter what he rolls, remove the dice. And you have to be very careful when you're choosing your removal. If you're in a heavy Po meta, Deflect isn't that good. Deflect seems amazing right now because it's so good against stuff like Palpatine. But against Po Maz, it does literally nothing unless they get the perfectly bad roll for you. So what I mean is if they have fast hands on Po and they roll 1 range side and 1 something else, the range side is getting resolved to the fast hands. The only way those range sides are sticking around is if they roll 2, which is pretty unlikely. So pick stuff like Isolation, Flank, all the stuff that reliably hits a die, Electroshock. These are all great tools for removing that 1 die. Do it every single turn. So, coming back around, I think what makes Po Maz really, really good is that there's not a lot of decision points to be made. And this is why I think we see a lot of maybe lesser skilled players doing really well with Po Maz. There's not a lot of decision points to be made, but the decision points to be made are really important sometimes. I kind of think of it like a face hunter deck in Hearthstone. I know they get such a bad rap because there's no skill involved, but there is skill in that you have to make the right decision at that one time where it does matter. So a really good example of this is the Po Maz mirror. So if you're in a Po Maz mirror, it's really important to understand what you're supposed to do. And the main thing is, it's one of the tips we already talked about, is claim the battlefield. So I had 2 opponents in my top 4 this weekend, both play Planetary Uprisings, either turn 1 or turn 2, and neither of them claimed the battlefield the whole game. And this is kind of what happens. It's like, if you spend that action to play Planetary Uprising, you are now behind in action. You have to find a place to catch up, flip the script where you're on top now and rolling first, and my opponents were not able to find that moment, and they never once triggered Planetary Uprising. So they wasted $2, they wasted an action, they wasted a card, and they wasted a deck slot on a card that did nothing for them. And so it becomes really important to make those critical decisions, both playing against Po, playing for Po. You have to realize that this is much like Face Hunter. There's not going to be a ton of decision points, but when they come up, you got to hit them. You only have so much room to beat Po Maz, and you only have so much room to make those critical decisions to win with Po Maz. So, okay, some mirror tips. Might as well do it right. Everyone wants to play Po Maz now until it's gone. So some mirror tips. Po's probably dying. He just probably is. The battlefield is up, no matter what, Poe is probably dying. So you need to go into the matchup knowing Poe's going to die. How do I get the most out of Poe before he dies? And how do I have Maz set up in such a way that she's good when he's dead? So cards like DL44 becomes cards you absolutely don't want to throw at your opponent. It's both a control die for that Poe. Let's say you have your opponent has fast hands on Poe. They roll out Poe. They resolve, do 3 to both your guys. Their die sitting there. You go DL44, pull off his die, be able to you have ambush. Now you get to do your stuff. And Maz is now set up for after Poe dies. So that becomes really, really important. I really don't think Planetary Uprising is good in the mirror match. It puts even more pressure on you to claim every time. The other thing is claim every time. I mean, you both have defensive positions. You both have dug-ins. You both have a side of Poe that's a special. I think in my mirrors, I did not roll Maz at all in like the first 3 turns of both of them. Basically until Poe died. It was like I was loading her up, but I wasn't rolling her all that much because I was like, I roll Poe. Whatever I roll, I'll take with a fast hand. If it's a 2, sure. Next action, claim. And they're just kind of like, huh. Okay, cool. I get all kinds of actions to do stuff. And it's like, okay, but now you have to roll, right? Like, I got the I rolled bad, I don't care mentality. You now have the what? Poe has to roll well? Wow, this is a weird spot. And he doesn't always roll well. It's just how Destiny works. Okay, well, let's come back to the last question, maybe the most important one. What now? Where are we at with this deck? Does it need an errata or not? I am very hesitant to jump up and down and scream errata. I'm always going to be one of the most hesitant people to do that because my thought is there's always the best deck in the meta. There's always going to be the deck that beats the best deck in the meta. And I was hoping one of 2 things would happen this weekend at European Nationals. That either Poe Maz would assert its dominance, be 3 of the top 4, and win the tournament. Or, even better, a deck would pop out that obviously beats Poe Maz. The decks that made the top 4, none of them look like obvious Poe Maz beaters to me. They're all decks I've tried. They're all decks that can beat Poe Maz when things go well, as we talked about before. When they get their stuff that they need, they can beat Poe Maz. But that's a different game than Poe Maz is playing, right? Poe Maz is over here cackling. I don't need to do anything, man. I'm just Poe. And the other decks are like, I need this to happen. I need this to happen. This is my game plan for beating Poe. And Poe's like, here's my game plan. Roll dice, and then I claim. I'm so awesome. And so, coming out of this event, I don't see an answer to this deck. I see potential answer-ish, right? Like, there's some stuff that handles him, but I already knew that. I already knew there was stuff that beats him about 50% of the time. I really wanted to see a deck come out that just crushes Poe Maz. I still haven't seen this yet. To me, the way games like this usually work is if there is a dominant deck, there's another deck that beats it but maybe loses to a lot of stuff. I haven't even seen that deck yet. So I'm getting really close to the beating of the drum that Poe needs an errata. Let's talk about why it would be worth it to errata Poe if we were going to go in that direction. The first thing is, to me, it is 100% obvious Poe needs an errata at some point, right? At some point needs an errata. This ability is insane. You can just, at some point, say set 4, set 5, you're going to have a deck full of all really, really awesome vehicles and weapons that are just ultra crazy. Any 4-side that gets printed, Poe's like, yep, another 4-side. All right, cool. It's like the designers are like, we released this really balanced weapon. It has this one 4-side, but it costs a lot. It has all this detriment. And Poe's like, I don't care about all that. I just care about the 4-side. So we're going to get more and more of these weapons and vehicles that are amazing with Poe. So why not hit him now? Why not just change it to say vehicles, put a little bit of Band-Aid on this? We might have to just rework Poe entirely at some point. I don't know. But if we make it just vehicles, Poe becomes a high skill card. You only have 6 vehicles you can put in your deck unless you put in FN. And now you're really having to draw, right? Like all other decks, you actually have to draw the cards you need. You have to make mulligans that can't be, like the way I mulligan Poe now is like, I want this piece of removal, or I want a cunning in this particular matchup, or I want this tool. It's not, I need these vehicles because I know they're coming back to me. I'll keep one thing I can chuck and chuck 4 vehicles because I don't care. It would be really cool if Poe has to make hard decisions. Like, okay, I need to be able to keep these vehicles because if I don't and I don't see them again, this is going to be really bad. I need to keep them. So I think errating Poe in that way is probably enough. Fast hands, I already said on my podcast, I'd be fine making it 2 cost. I know it sounds crazy. 1 cost would be great as well. But I think if we start with make Poe vehicles only, it's a very small errata. And like I said, it has to be made at some point. I think we can all agree that there's no way we can leave Poe like this for 5 sets. He's going to be completely out of control. So that's what I would do to it. The problem with Poe is not just that he's good, it's that he's good and consistent. The other big problem is that, let's just say for a second, Poe's not the best deck. Let's just say what's happened is it's been a snowball effect. He won a couple tournaments. I put up an article. Someone else puts up an article. Another puts up an article. He wins a tournament. He wins 2 store champs. And the ball gets rolling. And more people start playing him. So more and more people are winning. That's fine. But you know what also is a side product of that? People are really angry about Destiny. So at my particular store champ, the top 4 was all Poe Maz. 6th place was Poe Maz. I think there was only 1 other Poe Maz at the tournament. So it wasn't even like there was Poe Maz everywhere. They were just all at the top. And so what would happen is the other players were playing themselves, and one of them, they would win, and so they'd get paired up. And as soon as they sit down across from a Poe Maz, I could hear it all around me because I'm at the Poe Maz section. Oh, it's Poe Maz. Oh my god, this game is so stupid. I don't even know why I came to this tournament. I kind of hate Destiny right now. Poe Maz is the worst. Blah, 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 blah. People are angry. People are not happy with Destiny. It doesn't feel like Destiny to have a deck that's so not able to be interacted with. This is not the game that most of the people who I know got into the game. I took a little survey after the tournament, and everyone said they're less happy to play Destiny now with Spirit of Rebellion. After the event, tons of people are talking about selling their collection, how they're giving it X amount of time before they do so. Bottom line is, whether or not this is a mirage or not, it's not like Django Veers. Django Veers did a lot of damage. This is, there's no way to interact with this deck. It's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to do it consistently. The question is, can you handle it or blow it up first, and things have to go your way? Poe doesn't care. Things go whatever way it goes. Poe smiles and goes, hey, Poe Dameron here. I'm ready. Let's do this. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. It's no big deal. All right, so let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Is it time to errata? I'm getting real close to saying, yeah, it is. Like, I'm real hesitant to say errata is the answer. I feel like the meta usually sorts itself out. This deck just does, it does what you're not allowed to do in Destiny. You don't need upgrades. You don't need money. You don't need rolls. Are we even playing Destiny anymore? I don't know. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time on Tiny Grimes Games.